Spurs, Warriors, Kings, Heat. Who gets Lauri Markkanen? If you've heard the reports swirling for the past couple of days, Lauri Markkanen has been one of the most targeted players in free agency. But the difference is he's not a free agent. He is still a member of the Utah Jazz because he is still under contract for one more year. So these potential deals would all be trades. And by the way, this is why sometimes people say, good player, wrong place, wrong team, wrong opportunity, whatever it is. Because Lauri Markkanen was not given this type of role or going to get this type of contract he's about to get on any of the other teams he was on. And then his sophomore season wasn't as good as his rookie season, and some people lost a little faith in him. He goes to Utah, he's an all-star, and now he's about to get a huge bag. So because he has turned himself into an all-star caliber player, someone who can affect the game in so many ways, I think people forget, because people talk about Kevin Durant is 6'11", 7 feet, and can shoot the three, and has, skills like a guard. And not that Lauri Markkanen is exactly like Kevin Durant. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's as good as Kevin Durant was in his prime. What I'm saying is Lauri Markkanen is also 6'10", with the ability to shoot the three, and has, very good lateral movement. He's a big guard, so to speak. And so someone with his kind of skill set and talent is something that every team could use and want, which is why the Kings, the Warriors, the Spurs, and the Heat are all linked to Lauri Markkanen. The reason the Jazz would be willing to trade him is because not only is he going to get a huge package, we know Danny Ainge stockpiles those picks. He's going to get a ton of picks. I don't doubt that. But also Lauri Markkanen is heading into that win now type of player. And we've heard, or I've heard at least, I've seen some articles saying they kind of were trying to build around Lauri in the sense they're trying to get a star to pair with him. I don't know how true that is, but they couldn't. They couldn't attract another star. And so therefore, Lauri is at that point where it's either you build around him now or you just rebuild. So that's why it makes sense for them to just rebuild, because the next draft is supposedly going to be so amazing. They have Keontae George from last year's draft, and they have a bunch of young, talented players. So Lauri Markkanen's value probably won't be any higher than it is right now. You can get a ton for Lauri Markkanen. So I do see an opportunity for the Jazz, and I do think if the right package comes along, they would trade him. So now we got to talk about, is he going to go to the Warriors, the Spurs, the Heat, or the Kings? I think the Kings are out. The Kings have or are supposedly going to get DeRozan in a sign and trade. Maybe tomorrow, the reports are, whatever. I think they're kind of out on the Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes. I think they're getting DeRozan at this point if whatever deal they're doing goes through. And so we'll take the Kings out of this. For the Spurs, it's not that it doesn't make sense. I definitely think he fits with Wemby. But again, Lauri Markkanen is getting towards that win now era. But he's still, somewhat young. So unless they think they're winning with Wemby, which, Wemby is super talented, super crazy. So unless they think they're winning a title with Wemby in the next 2 years, maybe 3 years, then I understand. But at the same time, they're going to have to give up so much to get Lauri because, again, Danny Ainge is not taking a discount. So I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it for the Spurs. And if you go back to their Tim Duncan days, they won a title in Tim Duncan's second year, I believe, something like that. And they also had David Robinson, so that also helps. But the point is, it has been done, and Wemby is looking like he's going to be that type of player to be a generational talent. So I don't doubt that he could get it done earlier than some other players, especially with the Spurs. We know that Pop is a great coach. I guess my question is more so, is Lauri the answer? And that has nothing to do with Lauri as a player, because I think he's very good, and I think a lot of teams should want him. He is that good. He's shown to be that good, at least on the Jazz. What I'm saying is, I don't know if that makes sense for the Spurs right now. Maybe if this was 2 years from now, maybe if Wemby was in the league for 2 years and then Wemby was playing the way we think he's going to play in 2 years, then I'd be yeah, that makes sense. The Heat and the Warriors are the two teams where I'm I understand why they are pushing for it. It definitely makes sense for the two of them. The problem with both those teams, more so the Heat, than the Warriors, but I don't think the Warriors want to give up Kuminga, and if I was the Warriors, I would not, because if you watch this page, you know I'm a huge fan of Kuminga. I think he is going to be a big star in the future. But both of those teams don't have a ton of assets. Like, I think they both have most of their own picks. So, like, it's not that they don't have picks. But let's just say Lauri Markkanen goes to the Warriors. Or he goes to the Heat. Actually, it's the same thing. Both teams should be really good, you know, with Lauri Markkanen added to the team. So are those picks as valuable? Not necessarily, unless those picks are like 20, 30 or something like that. And then, Danny Ainge, we know, likes to stockpile picks. So I think, personally, he would be more pick-based than player-based. Like, I don't think it would be, like, let's just say the Warriors or the Heat were able to gather somehow 6 first-round picks. I'm not saying Lauri Markkanen is going for 6 first-round picks. I'm just saying, if they were able to give them 6 first-round picks and then just like a player to make the salaries match or whatever, although I don't know if the Jazz have to do that because their salary, they may be really under the cap. So regardless, whatever. The point is, like, I think, actually no, they have to do that because they would have to take a salary back because the Warriors and the Heat need to get rid of a salary in that case. Okay, sorry. Anyway, back to the video. But I think if those teams were able to gather a massive amount of picks and then give them a salary match and then maybe, like, you know, a nice up-and-coming, you know, young player or whatever, I think the Jazz would be more inclined to take that than if they proposed promising young players less than picks. Does that make sense? I feel like Danny Ainge likes to pick the players himself, you know? Unless there's like a player where you're like a Wemby. Like if the Spurs, for some reason, had no idea what they were doing, they were going to trade Wemby, which they will never do. But if they were like, we'll trade Wemby, then I think the Jazz would be like, all right, throw the picks out. We don't care. We got Wemby. But barring a player like that, I think it's more pick-based. And so if those two teams are able to gather picks, maybe it happens. But again, he fits on both of those teams. It makes sense because both of them are in complete win-now mode. So I definitely do see a world where Lauri Markkanen is traded. And it just depends how much the Warriors and the Heat and the Spurs, I guess, again, if they want to be in the sweepstakes. Again, I think the Kings are pretty much out of it. If they get, and after they get DeRozan, you know, if that goes through, then they're out of it for sure. There's no way. I mean, I guess there's still a way, but I would be surprised if they somehow still got Lauri and they got DeRozan. That'd be kind of crazy. Either way, though, the Warriors, the Heat, and maybe the Spurs, if they put together a package he can't refuse, then I could see Lauri Markkanen traded. But if not, Danny Ainge will take his time. He'll find the right package for him.